Hey, what's going on, everybody? In this video, we're going to be doing my final book review from a book I read in the month all the way back in April. Hopefully, once this one's done, I can start doing, all the May and June ones. But anyways, it's a World War One book, and it's Collision of Empires, The War on the Eastern Front in 1914 by Prit Buttar. And this is the first book in a four-book series on the Eastern Front in World War One. I've already picked up the second book in a hardcover format, Germany Ascendant, The Eastern Front in 1915. But anyways, this is probably the densest military book I have ever read, ever. Like, it's so in-depth. It washed, over my head half the time. It was really interesting and fun to read just because sometimes I like really, in-depth minutiae sometimes. But yeah, this book is definitely not for the faint of heart, and really, it's only for people that are really, really interested in World War One, or are, writing a paper on, the Eastern Front in World War One. Or just, diehard fans of World War One. Let's just read an example. I don't even know how to explain it. Let's see. Let's just pick a random page that looks. All right. So here's just a sample paragraph. One half of the encirclement of Samsonov's Second Army was effectively complete. The other half would depend on Mackensen, who had been so reluctant to turn his corps towards Allenstein. During the morning of the 28th of August, he received a further message from 1st Reserve Corps to the effect that the Russians were marching from Allenstein to Hohenstein. 1st Reserve Corps had been ordered to pursue them, and in the absence of orders to the contrary, Bülow suggested that 17th Corps do the same. Having received no direct orders for more than a day, Mackensen told Hauptmann Bartenwerfer, one of his junior staff officers, to fly to Army headquarters to get definitive instructions. Before Brandenwerfer had completed the journey, though, the telephone contact was reestablished. As soon as he became aware of the change in emphasis in the orders that had been passed to the 17th Corps, Ludendorff issued clarifying orders. 17th Corps was to resume its drive to Ortelsburg. Yeah, the whole book really isn't quite that insane, but it's just he takes a unique approach. He doesn't go by the whole army level, which is what most histories do, the 4th or 5th or whatever army, which is a pretty large unit of men. They describe sort of their actions, whereas Prit Buttar, since he's dealing with just the Eastern Front, he wants to do a really definitive, comprehensive, complete history, and he goes to the corps and division level, which can be pretty small in the grand scheme of things. So lots of times you have, the 23rd Corps and the 15th Corps and the 17th Corps and the 2nd Corps, all in the same paragraph. And sometimes it's just it's you're almost trying to envision a football play or something going on, because there's so many units involved. And I'd say it works better. Sometimes it helps describe a lot of these smaller battles and smaller skirmishes that actually had a big impact on the war. It definitely allows him to explain, it's just not something that happened. All these men were doing different things and moving around trying to actually tactically do stuff. So in that sense, it is really good. It's just really, really in-depth and dry. There's really no other word for it. For example, just another couple sentences from the page right across from that paragraph I just read. Oh, it's unable to contact Marto, Samsonov sent orders for general withdrawal to Kiev, adding that for the moment the commander of the 13th Corps was responsible both for his corps and 15th Corps, as well as the fragments of 23rd Corps. 15th Corps, 6th and 8th Infantry Division had always started an orderly withdrawal before the end of the 20th of August, and did so without close pursuit by the Germans. 23rd Corps was in control of the units facing south from the area where the German 41st Infantry Division had been defeated the previous morning to the western approaches of Neidenburg. I mean, literally, a lot of the battle portions of the book kind of read like that, and you really have to slow down and think about what's really going on. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I just sort of read it and it just went way over my head, and I just sort of read the words without really realizing what was going on. But yeah, the whole book really isn't like that per se. The first 3 or 4 chapters are really good, dealing with sort of the I don't know how to describe the military history of the Russians, the German Empire, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Just sort of their military thought and doctrine and their evolution in the past generation or two, and basically their lead up into World War One. Thought that was really interesting, showing their different strengths and weaknesses and sort of what their capacities were and stuff like that. And for example, one thing that boggles my mind is in the Russian Empire, in the years before World War I, there were entire years where most of the time throughout history, if the military has an actual military budget and like a modern economy, usually they're just like clamoring and demanding for more and more money and more resources. The Russian Empire's like military budget wasn't even completely spent in some years. They literally had like a surplus at the end of the year, which I've never even heard of in like a modern period. Like to me, that's just like crazy. I don't know. He also had some really good chapters. Like for one, that was a highlight for me was the a really giant chapter on Serbia's role once they entered the war against the Austro-Hungarians and the German Empire. Thought that was really well done, and he does have like really interesting tidbits. Like I was saying, for example, at the beginning of the war, Serbia had literally one factory pumping out artillery shells, which at a rate of I can't remember if it was like 10 an hour or 100 a day or something. It was so minuscule. It just like boggles my mind because it's just everyone thought like the Germans had like several thousand shells for every artillery piece like in their army, and they thought that was a pretty good amount, and they were like basically running out and like after a couple of weeks. So Serbia having like one factory make a couple hundred shells like a day was just like so minuscule. It just it definitely just shows like the effort that like different countries like went into going to the war, and their sort of drive and determination, like even though that's all they had at the time, like how they were able to like amp up like their production and get stuff done is just remarkable. But like I said, this book really though overall, it's just like I said, I can't in good faith like recommend it to anyone unless they're writing a paper like on the Eastern Front in World War I, or they're just like diehard like scholars of like World War I or something. I'm going to continue the series just because I'm really into World War I, though I'm not like trying to like memorize or learn too much from them, like per se on like the tactical level. But yeah, it was definitely really interesting. I'm gonna give Collision of Empires I'm gonna give it 4 out of 5 stars just because it's dry, but it's not trying not to be dry. I guess it's more just like matter of fact. This happened. He does have some insights on why different like say division or corps commanders perform certain actions to try strategically do something that you don't really learn about in other books because they're not even like mentioned because they're so I say so low on the totem pole, but I mean they're pretty high up. But and people talk about World War I, and you really only hear about like the field marshals and the army commanders. So if you're not one of the big name generals, sometimes you kind of just like the aren't mentioned, in the regular history. So definitely that's interesting. But like I said, it's just it's pretty unique in how dry it is. But anyways, like I said, 4 out of 5 stars to Collision of Empires, and always remember, read victoriously.